If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be hypocrisy. I have to be honest, few things are more satisfying than watching two parties I don't like prey on each other's downfall and cause a bunch of problems for each other. Like, should I get any satisfaction out of seeing these two race to the bottom? Probably not, but I do. And so that's why I'm really excited to talk about Shein and Temu, two companies who are basically the worst of the worst, and who have both decided that there can only be one, because they have been locked in a bitter, repetitive battle for years now that has recently gotten to the point of total absurdity. You'll see what I mean. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of zero gravity sports psychology, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's lecture, we are going to look at two of the fastest growing companies that seem to have everybody from TikTok to celebrities in a stranglehold. And we'll look at the details of this unhinged fight where they're accusing each other of everything from fake DMCA takedowns to mafia-style intimidation. I thought this was going to be like a Twilight moment, like Team Edward versus Team Jacob, but I very quickly realized that just like Twilight, Shein and Temu have me on team neither of you. What is wrong with you? Please seek help immediately. So get ready for a level of hypocrisy that is just so far beyond anything you could imagine. So let's talk about Shein. Before we get into the Cliff Notes version of everything wrong with this company, I think a good question is, what the heck is Shein in the first place? Let's go to their website. All right, so okay. Oh, they'd also like to show notifications. Okay, so we are immediately met with a pop-up ad encouraging us to spend up to $169. That way we can get 20% off our order. Though thankfully, we can spend as low as $9.90 plus cents. Wait, I'm actually really confused by this. The more you spend, the less money they take off of your order. Isn't that usually the opposite? Or I close that and then I'm immediately hit with another 20% off ad. But anyway, as you can see, Shein is a clothing retailer with dramatically low prices. You've got $3 sunglasses, which weirdly look a lot like my glasses for some reason. Promise I didn't get them from Shein. $6 for a blouse, $5 for this patterned t-shirt. It's not uncommon for the dramatically low prices to be reduced even further. Shein wants you to stay ahead of the trend, as they say, and they want you to do so for extremely cheap. But Shein's not just a fast fashion brand. They are actually classified as an ultra fast fashion brand, where you take everything that's so wonderful about the fast fashion industry and ramp it up to speeds that are unimaginable. According to NPR, as of a year ago, Shein was adding up to 10,000 new items every single day. Not 10,000 copies of its existing items, but up to 10,000 different designs. Designs which they can turn into a garment in as little as 10 days. Instead of mass producing articles of the same clothes, Shein produces a massive number of different items, some of which it only produces a few hundred of, and will completely abandon if not enough people buy it. This is what sets us apart from what many people call fast fashion, says Peter Pernod-Day, Shein's head of strategic communications. We're really a different model, a new model. And if you're wondering how any company could possibly come up with 10,000 new products in a single day, look no further than the Shein Innovation Center, which went viral last year after Shein flew influencers out to make this embarrassing promo video where they were like, hey guys, look, Shein is totally not overworking their employees.
Kicking off the trip by heading to the factory of the leading manufacturer for Shein was the perfect way to start. I was really excited and impressed to see the working conditions.
Excited to see the working conditions that Shein specifically curated for you to record and then post to social media. I'm sure that's indicative of their normal work environment.
I was able to interview a woman that worked in the fabric cutting department, so I asked her all of our questions and she answered them honestly and authentically. She was very surprised at all of the rumors that have been spread in the US.
As you're going to see, the rumors that have been spread in the US are more like lawsuits, proven facts, things that Shein has admitted.
I think my biggest takeaway from this trip is to be an independent thinker, get the facts and see it with your own two eyes. There's a narrative fed to us in the US, and I'm one that always likes to be open-minded and seek the truth.
Does the word propaganda come to anybody else's mind. As detailed in this recap from High Snobiety, the internet was like, that was kind of weird. And it was all just so messy, with the creators claiming they were not paid, even though they acknowledged being paid by Shein at an earlier date. And everyone wound up getting so much backlash that the majority of this influencer propo has been deleted from the internet. So beyond that PR disaster, another reason you may be familiar with Shein is through TikTok. Shein Haul is a tag with over 1 million different videos of everyone from influencers to smaller accounts showing off the latest things they bought from Shein. Often massive quantities of clothing. It's almost like for all 10,000 items that Shein produces, TikTokers are determined to try on all 10,000 items every single day. And much like the influencer brand trip, it's not all out of the goodness of these creators' hearts, right? Shein is massively incentivizing as many people as it can to spread the word. In an Instagram post, once again deleted due to backlash, it was announced that even Khloe Kardashian was on Shein's payroll a couple of years ago. The company has made every effort to truly become the face of fast fashion. At this point, I don't even think you can mention the term without people thinking of Shein. But the reason that that's a huge problem for Shein is that despite being widely used, fast fashion is also widely criticized. What is fast fashion and why is it so controversial? Asked CNN Style and also literally every other think piece in the last couple of years. And despite the financial success, this has turned into a branding nightmare for Shein, because the more people pay attention to them, the more they notice how completely awful of a company they are, and how they epitomize everything wrong with fast fashion. Without a doubt, the main criticism is just how wildly unsustainable all of this is. With over 10% of all carbon emissions coming from the fashion industry, and Shein pumping out 6.3 million tons of the stuff every year, Shein is far and away the biggest culprit compared to its other fast fashion contemporaries, which were already not doing so hot in the first place, according to the business of fashion. So being the literal worst of the worst in terms of sustainability, or should we just call it unsustainability at this point, is really just the beginning of Shein's problems. They're also constantly facing massive amounts of scrutiny due to their working conditions. Who would have guessed? Shein admits working hour breaches and pledges millions of dollars to improve sites. So part of the reason Shein is even able to keep up with the absurd churn of the clothes that they're putting out every single day is that they work with a large network of facilities all throughout China. Facilities in which Shein found in an independent investigation that staff were working up to 13.5-hour days with 2 to 3 days off a month. Shein's self-investigation was actually part of more PR scrambling because a documentary had just come out exposing the working conditions that these people were going through. And so after admitting problems with literally just 2 of their own factories, Shein said, while these are significantly less than claimed in the documentary, they are still higher than local regulations permit. Shein's like, great news, you guys. It turns out the factories we're working with, they didn't violate anywhere near as many labor laws as everyone thought. Also, that investigation was a couple years ago, but according to this BBC report from 2024, Shein suppliers still work 75-hour weeks, so not exactly sure what those millions and millions of dollars Shein spent to fix this issue actually did. But don't worry, because Shein assured us that they are working hard to address this issue even now, and they've already made significant progress on enhancing conditions. Obviously, Shein's PR team would never allow them to say this, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it for them. They can't fix these working conditions. That will never happen because the amount of clothes that they are producing could not ever be produced in a way that is sustainable for the people creating these items. The only way to scale some of this back would be to stop trying to come up with a new product to sell people every 10 seconds. Literally every 10 seconds. But you know what? Even that latest report of the 75-hour work weeks was from a couple months ago. So let's see how Shein reveals child labor cases at its suppliers as of literally last month. This is not an issue that they are attempting to fix. This is just going to keep getting worse and worse as time goes on. Because clearly, if they were facing any real repercussions, they wouldn't keep getting away with this. At this point, Shein is even exploiting people who don't work for them. Canadian textile artist calls out Shein and AliExpress. Having your art stolen sucks. So artist Alexandria Mass pointed out that retailers like Shein were very deliberately ripping off her original designs and selling them in true Shein fashion for only 20 bucks. And that's just an instance of Shein ripping off smaller creators. Go back a couple years earlier and you'll find designer Bailey Prado pointing out how Shein very deliberately created one-for-one dupes of almost 40 of her products. Things that they didn't even try to make look a little different, with Bailey finding around 45 of her designs stolen by Shein. And seeing as you can find other articles like this ethically dressed piece called 40 plus businesses Shein stole designs from, an article which has people in the comments pointing out other companies that Shein has stolen from, even their own Etsy shops, I don't think it's really a surprise that Fortune tells us fashion giant Shein has been slapped with yet another lawsuit alleging copyright infringement. So while Shein is certainly not unique by any means within the world of fast fashion, between polluting the environment, mistreating their workers, and ripping off designs from smaller artists, they definitely seem determined to be the worst offender of all of these things. And that is why they find themselves catching so much flack, which I believe is very well deserved. Also, besides these widely discussed topics, there is one really awful thing about Shein that I feel like I never see enough people talking about. The fact that Shein products have been called out by the South Korean government for containing toxic substances, hundreds of times the amount of toxic substances that are legally permitted to be in these products. I've seen people mention it for sure, but I guess I've also just found myself confused at how this is not a more widely talked about issue. But yeah, there is your crash course on why Shein is a crash course on how to run a company as unethically as possible. Now let's talk about Temu. Imagine if there was a marketplace like Shein, but instead of selling clothes, they sold literally everything. I really think the best way to think of Shein and Temu is as the Paul brothers. Like Logan and Jake, the way they're just locked in an endless battle to outdo each other and claim their title as the worst human being on YouTube. That's kind of what you've got going on Temu's website. You can see they too are promoting their up to 90% off deals. Come buy our funky sunglasses for $2. Man, these kind of look like my glasses too. I promise I didn't buy them from Temu either. But anyway, Temu seems like they are on a mission to rack up all of the same allegations that Shein does, but like even faster. So they have their absurdly low prices which are so low that they don't even make sense. And you get articles with people asking, is Temu legit? Is Temu a scam? The billion-dollar question. How can Temu sell products so cheaply? Do you want to guess the answer to how they sell their clothes so cheaply? You're never going to guess. Temu shoppers risk buying items made by forced labor. A US government investigation found an extremely high risk that products sold on Temu could have been made with forced labor. But here's the thing. Unlike Shein, where these allegations resulted in them admitting that there were issues, Temu has the built-in immunity of always just using the excuse that technically they are not creating any of their own products. Temu maintains it does not make any of the products it sells. In a statement, the company responded, "Our cost effectiveness stems from connecting consumers directly to manufacturers, eliminating layers of middlemen and their associated markups. Many of our merchants are established, sophisticated manufacturers, the same ones supplying well-known US brands and retailers like Amazon, Walmart, and Target." I know y'all did not just try to use Amazon and Walmart as proof of good quality products. They adhere to industry standards and have a proven track record of quality production. Amazon? I can't do this with you, Temu. Not today. Temu is committed to ethical labor practices. Our third-party code of conduct strictly prohibits forced or child labor and mandates compliance with all local wage and hour laws. So basically, their defense is that they made all of their manufacturers pinky promise not to exploit their workers, and that's the extent of their commitment to ethical labor practices. But ethical labor practices turned out to just be the first issue that Temu was going to copy from Shein. Artists' designs stolen and sold as knockoff on Temu. Retail app says it will make changes. So again, you've got an artist, Liz Bradford, who runs an Etsy shop, and she found out that vendors on Temu were ripping off her designs and selling them for less than half the price. And Temu's response to this can only really be described as whiny, which is not a word I think I've ever used to describe corporate communications, but this is what I mean. Temu has been online for just over a year, and since our launch, we've paid close attention to the feedback from brands and copyright owners, continuously upgrading our intellectual property protection system. And so they basically go on to explain that they are trying so hard to fix the fact that people keep selling stolen designs through their marketplace. We've been actively brainstorming. We encourage you to inform us of any artist complaints, and our goal is to enrich the artist experience and safeguard their rights through meaningful dialogue. Here's the thing though, much like Shein and their ever worsening labor issues, there are no repercussions for Shein allowing people to sell ripped off artwork through their platform. It's not in their best interest to protect artists and make sure that this isn't happening. They make way more money by just allowing it to happen and taking care of it if the artist happens to find out. Because the more things people sell through Temu, the more money Temu makes. There is literally no incentive to do the right thing here when the consequences for doing the wrong thing are just a slap on the wrist, aka consequences that Temu can absorb easily and indefinitely. So you've got stolen artwork, mistreated workers, but would you believe that Temu also has the same issue with selling toxic products? Shein and Temu shoes and sandals were found with 11 to 229 times the legal limit for toxic substances. A spokesperson for Temu told Business Insider, upon receiving notice from the Seoul City government, we immediately launched an internal investigation. Y'all sure do love launching investigations into things that should never have happened in the first place. I don't feel like it's reaching to say that a company with as much money as Temu could afford to enforce some sort of standard or quality control to avoid this issue. But again, is the incentive to do so in the room with us right now? Probably not. But trust me, I know they have enough money to do this, but instead of spending it on that, they are spending it on the largest amount of ads I have ever seen for a singular company in my life. Temu is the biggest advertiser on Meta, spending almost $2 billion in advertising last year just on Facebook and Instagram. Temu's advertising budget is legitimately unreal. That's to say nothing of the tens of millions of dollars they paid for Super Bowl ads this year. Like, at this point, I would genuinely consider you lucky if you have never seen an ad for Temu, because the advertisements aren't even good.
Feels like a dream, feels like magic. Now I believe I can have it.
Man, I sure do love when Temu completely changes my hair texture. Just instantly straightened hair. This is definitely the same person, right?
Ooh, ooh, Temu. Ooh, ooh, Temu. All of my wishes came true.
I feel like I'm actually legally entitled to compensation for like medical damages for getting the Ooh Ooh Temu song stuck in my head. That has to have caused some level of mental duress, surely. Really living for how you guys had billions and billions of dollars in your budget for advertising, but clearly you were paying your animators and musicians in thoughts and prayers. This video has 1.4 billion views, by the way. Billion views. I genuinely think Temu wants everybody in the entire world to know of their existence, which I guess kind of is how advertising works. But clearly, this is abnormal. Temu's advertising avalanche is impossible to ignore, says Adweek. And these aggressive ads combined with Temu's absurd prices are resulting in like an army of Temu shoppers, all of whom are basically being manipulated to spend as much money as they can. Temu's approach to pricing is pushing the exact consumer psychology buttons necessary to keep shoppers shopping by implementing gaming-related elements into the e-commerce experience. Customers are encouraged to keep shopping with the introduction of bonuses and coupons that mimic the rewards you might accumulate in a video game. Everything on Temu is so absurdly valueless that they are able to manipulate their price to try to encourage people to fall into what is effectively shopping addiction. And I do mean valueless because while it is quite possible that you may get one of the good vendors on Temu, I guess, there are thousands and thousands of people complaining to the Better Business Bureau that they received the bad versions of products. A defective table, missing pieces, items that were completely different from what was advertised, a defective ceiling fan, and some people never even received their products at all. I ordered a total of 27 items from Temu that I have not received. So as you can see, Temu is nothing if not the Jake Paul of e-commerce platforms. But unlike the Paul brothers, when Shein and Temu interact with each other, it results in something that actually resembles entertainment value. Thus, it's time to dive into the ballad of Shein and Temu's bitter fight to basically sue each other out of existence. Shein, Temu in fierce fight over US market for $10 dresses, so says Reuters. In US federal court, Shein has accused Temu of contracting social media influencers to make false and deceptive statements against Shein. Shein seeks to block Temu from using Shein's name for marketing, and it wants damages from sales that Shein could show came through deceptive or infringing marketing. Temu has asked the court to dismiss the lawsuit. So who would have thought that this billions of dollars of advertising would actually backfire on Temu by getting them in trouble with Shein, of all places? So what was Temu's response to this, you might wonder? Shein sued Temu. Temu sued Shein. The war over fast fashion is heating up. So according to MIT Technology Review, Temu says Shein has asked all of its 8,000 plus manufacturers to sign exclusive agreements and loyalty oaths that specifically prevent them from selling on Temu. They also claim Shein is using false copyright infringement claims to try to get Temu to take down certain products that Temu sells at cheaper prices than Shein does. So we've got the two worst companies you know pointing fingers at each other and saying, no, you, nah, you first. But then, in a twist of fate that literally nobody saw coming, low-cost e-commerce rivals Shein and Temu shelve US court cases. Both Shein and Temu have applied to end their legal fights with each other in the US. So in October of last year, they actually reached a truce. Do you want to guess how long that truce lasted? Not even 2 months. December of last year, Temu files fresh lawsuit against Shein, accusing its rival of mafia-style intimidation. Yes, this is a real term that Temu was attempting to use in a court of law. And I'm sorry, but these allegations are crazy. We sued Shein because recently their actions have escalated. They begin to illegally detain merchants, forcibly asking for their phones, stealing our merchant accounts and passwords, stealing our business secrets, and simultaneously forcing merchants to leave our platform. I don't know if this is true, but I want it to be true. This would genuinely amuse me to no end if this was actually happening. Obviously, I don't want anybody to be forcibly detained, but rather the idea of Shein just being the supervillain trying to block Temu's bag at every turn. I kind of think Temu deserves it. I'm not gonna lie. Just as I think Shein deserves a lawsuit for that very same action. So Shein finally put out a rational response to all of this instead of another lawsuit. Just kidding. Shein is now copying Temu's copyright lawsuit. Obviously, Shein just sued them back for the exact same thing that they were being sued for. Shein complains about Temu being an unlawful enterprise built on counterfeiting, theft of trade secrets, infringement of intellectual property rights, and fraud. That's right. Shein, the company who is currently being sued by multiple sources for stealing their intellectual property, is now suing Temu for stealing intellectual property. You are out here trying to enforce copyright of things that you genuinely do not own, to rip off artists and put that work on your website, and then to have the audacity to sue people for ripping things off of your website is absolutely absurd. The accusations get even nuttier because according to the Motley Fool, Shein is alleging that Temu doesn't even make money on the things that they're selling. So they're implying that Temu's absurdly low prices aren't even leading to a profit, which would mean Temu doesn't even care about making money yet. They would just currently be trying to amass as much of a Temu army as they can before presumably raising the prices in the future. Now, obviously, that's just something Shein is implying and alleging to make Temu look as bad as possible so they can win a lawsuit. But considering the fact that I have found Temu listings for less than $1, it does make me wonder if they have kind of jumped the shark in terms of low pricing, even with the stuff being so cheap to produce. So for a recap, Shein is a terrible company. Temu bursts onto the scene determined to be an equally terrible company. Shein sues Temu. Temu sues Shein. Both of the lawsuits are dropped for some reason. Then Temu sues Shein. Shein sues Temu. And then they both get investigated by the United States government for selling products that contain toxic materials. I kid you not. As I was preparing this video, as I was making this outline. US safety regulators say it's time to investigate Shein and Temu. Two safety commissions say Shein and Temu raise specific concerns, such as the potential sale of deadly baby products. You can't make this up. You genuinely cannot make this up. So, yeah. That's all happening. And you know, this all reminds me of one of my favorite memes. So there's this image that people commonly use to respond to broken clocks. Heartbreaking. The worst person you know just made a great point. And you know what? That feeling does hurt. It does hurt your soul. But there's an edited version of this meme that I think is even funnier and more specific. Heartwarming. The worst people you know are all fighting. And say what you will, that is a wonderful feeling. So my verdict is that Tian and Shimu deserve each other. The best outcome for the fate of our planet and everybody on it would be if they just kind of destroyed each other. But while that's unlikely, I guess we at least have the small silver lining of being mildly amused at their antics. I guess there has to be something to laugh about among all the crying. But that's my take on the situation. Dave's take on the situation is that he will be suing Temu because the Ooh Ooh Temu song is stuck in his head as well. And I'm of course excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, or leave a comment. But I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback. Because I am running a 100% completely, totally not toxic, yet somewhat slightly unaccredited university. Probably. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess, but until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to try to make it 24 hours without seeing an ad for Temu.